Shalom, y'all, and welcome back to the Restored Israel series. Last week, we discovered that every covenant God made from Abraham to Yeshua was made with Israel. And through Messiah, we are grafted into the same family. But being grafted in just isn't about identity, it's about lifestyle. If we've been joined to Israel's covenant, then we're also invited to walk in Israel's covenant way of life. Now, if you didn't go listen to episode 1, please stop this, pause this, go listen to that, and then come back to episode 2. Today, we are unpacking what all that means in real terms. Why the commandments of God are not a heavy weight, but a blessing. Why some laws can't be practiced today, and what that teaches us about God's heart. And finally, how living out His instructions actually brings freedom, not bondage. So, let's begin with 1 John 5:3. For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not burdensome. So, John's words might surprise you if you haven't heard that before, or if you just skipped over it before, but really think about that. For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not burdensome. So, these might surprise you if you've grown up hearing that the law was a burden. He says the exact opposite. God's commandments are not burdensome. Why? Because the purpose of Torah, God's instructions, that's what Torah means, remember, was never to trap people into a religion, but was to teach them how to love. In Deuteronomy 30:11-14, I'm going to not say this whole entire verse, but just if you want to go and see it, read it for yourselves. Deuteronomy 30:11-14. For this commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off. The world is very near you, in your mouth, and the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. God tells Israel, my commands aren't impossible. They're right here, and they're doable. They're close. So when people say God's laws are burdensome, they usually mean trying to earn salvation by works. But that was never what the Torah was ever about. It was about living out salvation. Think of it like this. Rules without relationship are religion. But relationship without rules is chaos. What's the adversary? The devil, Satan. He's chaos. He has no rules. He's just flippant about everything. So rules without a relationship are religion, but relationship without rules is chaos. Torah is the balance, the way covenant relationship stays alive and is protected. So what did Yeshua teach about the law? You've heard me say, if you've listened to any of my other episodes, I'm sure you've probably heard me talk about Matthew 5:17. And we're going to, Matthew 5:17, Yeshua, Jesus, said, do not think I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly, I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. Yeshua didn't come to abolish the commands. He came to live them perfectly, to show us how to keep them with the right heart. The Pharisees had added layers of man-made traditions that turned obedience into performance. Go back and go reread what Yeshua was every time that he was harping on the Pharisees. It was extra laws, extra let's do it on this day instead of this day, or let's do it on 2 days in a row, so then that way we're sure that, God will be happy. That type of thing. Yeshua peeled that away and showed what Torah really looks like when motivated by love. Think about this. You don't just avoid murder, you remove hatred from your heart. You don't just avoid adultery, you walk in purity even in your thoughts. Because even if you lust after a woman, Yeshua says, you have committed adultery. That goes for women too. If you lust after a man, you've committed adultery. But it says, if you lust after a woman, you've committed adultery. So what he did is he brought the spirit of the law back to life. Think about this. And maybe write this down so you can come back and think about it later. But when you think of law, do you picture cold legalism, or do you see a father giving his children guardrails that lead to blessing? That perspective shift is the difference between religion and relationship. I'm going to say that again. When you think of law, not the law, when you think of law, do you picture cold legalism, or do you see a father giving his children guardrails that lead to blessing? So then people ask, well, if we're supposed to keep God's laws, do we have to do all of it? There is the sacrifices, the temple rituals, everything, which is a fair question. I mean, this isn't, you have to go and read and discern and try to figure out what we are able to do and what we aren't able to do. Number 1, some laws are for men. Number 2, some laws are for women. Number 3, some laws are for priests. Number 4, some laws are for everybody. So you have to go and put them into categories. So the Torah is different categories, and understanding them helps us to see which apply today and why. So you have what modern Christianity calls your moral commands, which would be your 10 commandments. So these deal with the right and the wrong, things like honesty, sexual purity, mercy, justice, loving your neighbor. They reveal God's unchanging character and apply to everyone for all time. Don't forget, there's also one in there, it's called the 4th commandment, that says, remember the Sabbath day. And it tells you how to rest in the Sabbath day. But everybody wants to only say, yeah, we follow 10 commandments, but there's only actually 9 that they actually follow. Yeshua affirmed all of these. And then you have the ceremonial or temple commands. These were instructions for priests, sacrifices, and temple worship. Because we have no physical temple today, and Yeshua became the perfect sacrifice, Hebrews 10, we can't perform these. But we still learn from them. Every sacrifice pointed to Messiah's atonement. The priesthood foreshadowed our calling to be a loyal priesthood. We don't do them, but we do honor their meaning. And then you have what's considered possibly civil commands, which means these are the governed land boundaries, kings, judges, justice systems. Without a physical nation of Israel under Torah law, we can't enforce them, but their principles still teach righteousness and fairness. And some of these commands are in our government as we speak. So look at the Jubilee year. You forgive your debts to your friends and neighbors, and the federal government actually does that every 7 years for certain debts. So they do some things under the Levitical laws, if you will. So while today some commands can't be physically carried out, their lessons still shape our values. So which laws do we keep? Well, we know that we can do the 10 commandments. Those are the moral foundations for all generations. So Exodus 20 and Romans 13, 8 through 10. The Sabbath or the Shabbat, that's a weekly rest proclaiming that God, not our labor, is a provider. He created that for man, not for man. He created the Sabbath for man. He didn't create man for the Sabbath. You can go find all of that in Genesis 2, 1 through 3, Exodus 31, 16 through 17, Hebrews 4, 9 through 11. And the appointed feasts. And people are like, oh, that's all Jewish stuff. No, those are God's holidays. And remember, we're talking about being grafted in, right? These are God's appointed times. Everybody wants to proclaim the man-made holidays. God gave us times. God did, not just for certain people. God's prophetic calendar fulfilled a Messiah and is awaiting his return. You can find these in Leviticus 23, Zechariah 14, 16, Colossians 2, 16 through 17. You see that Yeshua did these feasts. And of course, you got clean eating. We can do that as well. It's a choice. Talk about dying to self when you're not able to eat a certain type of food. God distinguishes between clean and unclean animals to teach holiness and identity. And if you look at some of these things of what they eat themselves, you wonder why we're not supposed to eat them. Yeshua made people clean from sin. He never redefined animals as food. Peter's vision in Acts 10 was about Gentiles, not diet. Peter says so in verse 28. Acts 15 affirms Gentile inclusion and expects new believers to keep learning Moses weekly in verse 21. And if you want to do that, you can go to my Etsy store, which I will link in the description if I can. Just find Sanctified by Yahweh in Etsy, and you can download the Sabbath. It's a 8-week Sabbath journal that will, if you are not walking the Sabbath, number one, it'll help you to walk in the Sabbath, but then you can also learn how to walk in the Sabbath and maybe see if that's, if you truly see some changes by doing that. So let's go to Leviticus 11. Um, 1 through 8. So the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, say to the Israelites, of all the animals that live on land, these are the ones you may eat. You may eat any animal that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud. There are some that only chew the cud or only a divided hoof, but you must not eat them. The camel, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is ceremonially unclean for you. This is where people get uncomfortable. But you know what? Yahweh wants us uncomfortable. God wants his people uncomfortable. He wants us set apart. He doesn't want us like anybody else. Let's check out Acts 10:28. I can get there. Acts 10, verse 28. So this is Peter at Cornelius's house. We're going to start in 25. As Peter entered the house, Cornelius met him and fell at his feet in reverence. But Peter made him get up. Stand up, he said. I am only a man myself. While talking with him, Peter went inside and found a large gathering of people. He said to them, You are all well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with or visit a Gentile. But God has shown me that I should not call anyone impure or unclean. Here's the onion peeling part. Yeshua, in the law, in the Torah, in the Old Testament, it doesn't say anywhere where an Israelite cannot associate with a Gentile. Nowhere does it say that. Which is why God had to show Peter this vision. So holiness isn't a diet plan. It's Father's formation. Clean eating doesn't save us, yet Yeshua saves us, but it does teach us to live apart, and it does teach us to obey God. Begin by avoiding pork and shellfish. Choose fish with fins and scales, and always walk in love. Some more laws that we can actually do. We can care for the poor. We can make sure we don't do any sexual impurities. We can be sure that we're merciful. Those are all in the Torah's heartbeat. Micah 6:8. Deuteronomy 24:17 through 22. Matthew 23:23. James 1:27. How about Romans 3:31. Do we then make void the law through faith? So just because we have faith in God, we make void of the law? Paul is asking. Certainly not. On the contrary, we establish the law. Paul's saying that faith doesn't cancel obedience, it strengthens it. When you keep the commands out of love, they become joy. Psalm 19:7 says, The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. David didn't see the law as burden. He saw it as a gift that brings transformation. So let's break some myths here. The law does not equal bondage. Sin equals bondage. Let me say that again. The law does not equal bondage. Sin does. So when you think of it as the law equals bondage, are you saying the law makes you sin? I didn't think so. Romans 7:12. So then, the law is holy, and the command is holy and righteous and good. Bondage happens when you try to keep commandments without a relationship. Freedom happens when you obey out of love. Think of a marriage covenant. Is a husband isn't enslaved because he doesn't cheat. He's faithful because he loves. Let me say that again. A faithful husband isn't in bondage because he doesn't cheat or doesn't sin. He's faithful because he loves. So then therefore he doesn't cheat on his wife. That's Torah obedience. Psalm 119, the longest chapter in the Bible, is a love song to God's law. Verse 97 says, Oh, how I love your law. It's my meditation all the day. If Torah were a burden, the psalmist wouldn't rejoice over it. Obedience brings peace because it aligns your heart with God's design. James 1:25 calls it the perfect law of liberty. Liberty, freedom, not slavery. So let's read Deuteronomy 10:12 through 13. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways and to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and to keep the commands of the Lord and his statutes, which I command you today for your good. Did you catch the last part? For your good. Every command God gives is for our good. They protect us, it blesses us, and it sets us apart like he wants us to be. When we rest on Sabbath, we're not earning points. We're learning to trust because we're not working that overtime on Saturday. We're telling our job we're not going to work on Saturday. When we honor his feast, we remember his story of redemption. And Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, yeah, that's going to be at the end times and it's going to be in the kingdom. So why would you not want to rejoice in that feast now and learn about it now? When we walk in purity, we reflect in his holiness. Obedience isn't bondage, it's alignment. Some commandments were linked directly to the land of Israel or to the functioning temple. For example, animal sacrifices. Those are in Leviticus 1 through 7. Levitical priest rituals. Tithes given to the Levites in the temple service. And then, of course, since those can't be done outside the land or without a priesthood, we remember them symbolically. When you read those sections, don't skip them. You need to ask, what does this reveal about God's holiness? How does Yeshua fulfill this picture? Hebrews 8:10 tells us Messiah serves as our high priest in the heavenly temple. So even though the earthly rituals can't be performed, the spiritual reality is still happening in him. That's why Yeshua said in John 4:23, the hour is coming and now is when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. We honor the heart of the Torah through Messiah's priesthood. Some people fall into extremes. One side says we don't need the law at all. The other side says you must keep every law exactly like ancient Israel. Both miss the point. The goal is relationship that produces obedience. The Holy Spirit writes the Torah on our hearts, Jeremiah 31:33. He convicts us where we fall short and empowers us to walk in truth. So rather than asking, which commandments can I break? How about you ask, how can I honor God more deeply with my life? That's the heart of a grafted in believer. I'm going to say that again. How can you honor God more deeply with your life? Instead of thinking about which commands I don't have to follow and break. How about you just do? Let's close with Psalm 119, 165. Great peace has those who love your law, and nothing causes them to stumble. Peace, shalom, comes from walking in harmony with God's ways. His commandments aren't chains, they're compass points guiding us to break the... His commandments aren't chains, they're compass points guiding us back to the heart of the Father. You were once a foreigner. Now you're family. You were once far off. Now you've been brought near. Not just to believe, but to belong and to walk in his ways. So, next week in episode 3, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore what covenant obedience looks like, how Yeshua's spirit empowers us to live it out, and how grace and law work together in perfect harmony. Until then, remember, the commandments of God are not burdensome. They are God's love language. Walk in them with joy. You're no longer a foreigner. You're home. Shabbat shalom if that is the way you follow, and if not, have a blessed rest of your week. Shalom, y'all.